Can I ask, actually, since that was my question, Benny might figure that out, that Sir John could address the question about the duty, the import duties, the 35% as well? I'd be interested to hear your view. Thank you.
That's Bill Thompson, somebody. Mr. Delivery. I believe that Adam Smith's philosophy was a free market economy. And Bermuda, somehow or the other, in its mercantilism, produced somewhat of a free market economy, except for the fact that our forefathers decided that they're going to keep business out of Bermuda by 60-40. And what we're doing now is we're saying we're going to keep overseas business out of Bermuda by imposing a disproportionate tax on people entering our ports and harass them when they arrive to make sure you collect the tax. So what we're doing basically is, I don't want to use the word, but get a lot of people off by making them feel as though they are being interrogated every time they come to Bermuda. So, and because the amount now is so high, you're going, if it were 10%, oh well, we can let it slide. But 35%, no way we can let, we need the money. And you civil servants go down and harass people to make sure you collect it. And I think we've got it all wrong. We've turned this country upside down by not being progressive in our approach in laying out economic programs that fit in more with what the rest of the world is doing. Because if the foreigner coming to Bermuda, and Bermudian too, sees something that looks so ridiculous, they say, well, what's this third world country? All they want to do is, when you go into a third world country, they hassle you for something they put in their own pockets. Well, they're not putting it in their own pockets, but what they're doing, they're putting it into the government's pocket by taking an excessive amount of money. So we need to change. And on the second part of this program, when we talk about opening up Bermuda, we need to make it comfortable, and if people chose to go on the internet, find what they want, it fits them, it's current, it makes them attractive, and so forth, and they can get it at a cheaper price. Why should it be told they can't have it at a cheaper price through taxation? It makes no sense.
And on that note, we're going to start the second session. Oh, one more? Bruce?
Mr. Chairman, one of the threats or risks that hasn't been mentioned, I think, is us Bermudians ourselves. I think one of the big issues facing this country is that we as Bermudians are just not getting it. I just don't think we're getting it. I think many of us are like ostriches. We've got our heads in the sand. We're believing our own mantra. Bermuda's another world. Things have always worked out. They're always going to work out. And I think as long as we have that outlook, we're going to be in a state of gridlock. And I wish, in a way, that people would wake up and understand that it's their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, and their great-great that are going to be paying the taxes to service all this debt. Thank you.
I think Sir John referenced that when he mentioned the word entitlement. I think that's exactly it. So with that, I'm going to introduce to you the moderator for Bermuda and its future. Nathan Kowalski is the CFO and Senior Portfolio Manager at Anchor Investment Management. Previously, he worked in Canada at KPMG and Deloitte, where he provided mergers and acquisitions advice to corporate clients. Mr. Klaus Nathan is a chartered accountant, chartered financial analyst, and chartered investment manager. He's also author of the weekly Royal Gazette column, you've got some competition there, Mr. Birchall, Financial Ramblings from the Rock. Nathan.
Thanks, buddy. I wish my wife was here. She's never going to believe I've been this quiet for this long sitting here. But you can put the razor blades away. We're going to go look for solutions now. And we'll get maybe on some positive notes of the way forward. So the lead-off question for you gentlemen. In your opinion, what are the three major solutions or priorities that Bermuda must undertake immediately and in the medium and long term that will ensure the continued prosperity of Bermuda?
I led off in the first section, and I'll lead up again in the second section. I think the immediate priority is to get Bermudans to understand that the game has changed. Tourism Bermuda is dead, business Bermuda is here, and it isn't going to go away. You're not going to get back to tourism. We have, though, to get Bermudans to be as involved and as supportive of business Bermuda as it was of tourist Bermuda. That requires a huge psychological shift. It is going to be done against the racial legacy of the past and the present. It's a matter that has to be addressed, because as long as we stay arguing about the past, we are going to continue sending off the most god-awful vibes to the business Bermuda community that we want to come here. They are far more affected by what's happening here because they're here 365 days a year. Under the old regime, tourists came, we smiled for 5 days, they went back home. Another one came, and we kept that up. The people who come here now come and stay for 360 days, they see our secrets, they see the underside of life, and we have to adjust. We, Bermudians, have to do some thinking, and government has got to lead on that. That's the immediate problem. The midterm is that and it's almost the same, that we've got to take a look at our education system. A quick aside here, Bermuda, believe it or not, is spending, when you look at public and private education put together, they're spending close to $200 million a year on educating a mere 10,000 students. That's a stupidly high expense of this island. The public system is around 120, the private system running parallel is 60. We can't really afford that nationally. Part of our cost structure has got to be taken down. But we've got to educate communities to the point where they can have better job opportunities, but then we hit this entitlement problem. It's real. It won't go away. That's the midterm problem, but trending to the long term is that we have to re-invite global businesses to come to Bermuda, to set up in Bermuda and sell their services overseas. Bermudians can do it too, but a lot of the businesses do require high capital startups. Therefore, if Bermudians can amass $100 billion and start their insurance company, do it. If you can't, invite somebody else in who can. That's the stark reality. We can do that by easing some immigration and residency requirements, which has already started, we're pleased to see, in government. But we've got to get our resident population to grow. We've got to judiciously relax ownership rules in order to encourage the reinvestment of capital in Bermuda. Rethink those sorts of things against the backdrop of our legacy. And we've got to revamp our Victorian tax revenue and make it modern so that we don't have to extract cash or tax in the way we do. But we've still got to run our finances very conservatively. We've got to learn the lesson that we didn't learn over the last 5 years. And the last thing is that we've got to revise existing concepts of real estate use. If we cast our minds back to the Semester Beach property up at Southampton, I think most people think of that as tourist space. We've got to make a quantum leap and consider that as business park space. Morgan's Point is the one development, I think, that has great potential here because I see it as a base for business Bermuda. I don't really see it as adding much to our tourist product. Because the reality is that our tourist product is down to the point where we cannot get more than $70 million a year of tourism, but we've got to keep it alive in order to support international business. Our air arrivals are now under 200,000. Under 200,000. It's going to come in for leisure. The other 40,000 are business visitors. Business visitors make up a significant portion. So those are our midterm facts, and what we've got to do is do those things. Immediately sort out our own attitudes. In the near term, education. Long term, alter some of our rules and regulations. A quick point here. It's a funny one. Bermuda's very successful tourism industry was built on restrictions. Couldn't rent a car. Had to wear shorts of a certain length if you were female. Had to turn up in your hotel dining room with a jacket on. You couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, you couldn't put up signs, all sorts of restrictions, and it worked. We've still got the same attitude now in business Bermuda. It's not going to work the same way.
Good points, Larry. Thank you. Well, I would start off as the number one priority is getting Bermudians back to work. Larry tells us we don't know the statistics, but it's high. There are a lot of underemployed people. In any democratic society, we can't have this group of unemployed people. So we need incentives immediately, I think, to get people back to work. If it's incentives through payroll tax reductions for incremental hires, it's more training, coaching, sending people abroad for programs. We need to get Bermudians to work and save some of the social fabric fabric of the country. Number two is we need to keep attracting foreign capital, and as we said earlier, this economy is certainly making that difficult. But there are ways to do it, making it easy to do business here, being more accommodating, and making those returns that investors can see better. So I think that has got to be our second priority, and you've made that point too, I know, as well, Larry and Sir John. And lastly, I think we need to protect our debt rating. We're just downgraded from a AA to an A minus, and it's a slippery slope as you start down the way, as John said, to Barbados or something else. So I think that is a very important aspect of this economy, to prove to people that this is a good, safe jurisdiction. And I think debt ratings are a way that send that message. That starts with government finance. There's a lot to be done there. It's hard to do in a tough economy, as all the economies around the world are showing. But over time, we have to assume that revenues aren't going up. How do we get costs under control? And how do we balance the budget? And I think there are a lot of things associated with that. If it's privatization to get some of these businesses off the government's books and let Bermudians own businesses, all kinds of strategies to look at how government works and serves Bermudians better. So those would be my three priorities.
It's not lost on me that there's nothing but men sitting up here. And if we're talking about the future now. In the past, I mean, people like me screwed things up. And it's unlikely that people like me are going to have the solution. It's going to take a joint effort. So hopefully the next time you have one of these conferences, you'll have proportional representation, if you know what I mean. In my opening remarks, I sort of downplayed or criticized growth as being the metric by which we should judge our success. In its place, I'd like to suggest a word I got from the author of The Black Swan, Nassim Taleb: robustification. To make something robust. When I think about Bermuda, or if you think about Bermuda in a historical context, our architecture, everything about Bermuda deals with robustness. We spend an inordinate amount of money on our homes, on our roofs, because we prepare for the worst case scenario. If the bankers had done something like that, we wouldn't have had a financial crisis in 2008, but let's not go there. So when I think about a robust economy for the future, firstly, it should be diversified. And we've gone some way to diversifying our economy. We're fond of thinking of international business and tourism, but the second largest earner of foreign currency in Bermuda is investment income. Investment income from Bermudian savings. Bermudians are great savers, they're great investors. So much so that prior to the recession in 2008, we were earning about $800 million in investment income from rents, from bonds, from stocks. And so without any government interference, or basically government staying out of the way, individual Bermudians were able to erect a third pillar. Obviously that third pillar has come under threat now because stock dividends are down, our rents are down. But diversification, for sure. The second part, I think, of robustification has to do with moving us off of our fossil fuel economy and growing green shoots. Renewable energy is an important part of the future of Bermuda. It will help us develop independence. We're not talking political independence here, we're talking about the real stuff. The kind of stuff that our forefathers thought about when they were building their homes. Putting a water supply, a tank on the property, putting a cesspit on the property so that the property stood alone, yet still connected to a neighborhood. So when I think about the future, that's the way I think we should build our economy. Take a page out of the book of Victorian Bermudians in terms of the strength which and the redundancies which they built into their life systems.